Christmas Eve 2007. The men of Delta Company 40 Commando were flying in to set up their new base in Helmand. Early on Christmas morning, they went out on their first foot patrol. This was their welcome from the Taliban.
Right, Jonesy! Yeah? Straight line through me, 1 o'clock. Yeah? Got two buildings. Building on the right, he was on top of their RBC for the... Right!
Even in 2007, the district of Nari Siraj was still relatively uncharted territory, although British forces had been here since 2006. What was clear was that many were hostile.
We've only just arrived in this area, but it has been good. We've obviously been on 3 patrols so far. We've been in contact on 2, so it looks like it should be a good 3 months out here.
While those on patrol took the fight to the Taliban, the other Marines were helping build up the new base, known as Forward Operating Base Gibraltar. The camp and the remains of an Afghan compound was basic, but the Royal Marines, most on their first tour of Helmand, seemed to relish the challenge. Conditions are still pretty basic, pretty austere. What is morale like?
Yeah, we've been here 2 days, 3 days now, so actually it's a group of very contented, happy people at the moment. It's a new area that we're into. There hasn't been much military presence here, and as a result of that, there's an awful lot that we can achieve over the next couple of months, and that's really my aim here, is to try and reach out to the local nationals, provide them a bit of security, and just stabilise the situation.
Friend and foe were hard to tell apart.
I mean, obviously the enemy aren't wearing uniforms or anything like that, so they blend in with the local populace.
Insurgents and local farmers, sometimes one and the same. But local elders asked if the troops could help provide schools and hospitals, teachers and doctors, as most with any skills had long since fled the fighting.
Send the
search dog up to 2-2.
Roadside bombs were already a real threat to the Marines. Corporal Charlie Bates and his sniffer dog Brandy risked danger daily to keep the others safe.
Try and push up to around Yankee 4-1, just have a sniff around there.
At the moment we're going out on every single patrol. There's only me and Brandy up here at the moment, so we're in quite high demand. So working day can range from 3 in the morning till late at night, depending on the patrols programme.
Have a look around the area, lads.
After a long dawn patrol, all returned safely to base to begin the festivities. This carol service is the one chance that the Marines and the medics here have to really celebrate Christmas today. And even though they're thousands of miles away from their friends and family back at home, working and living in difficult and often dangerous conditions, morale here remains high. This tour of duty, codenamed Operation Herrick 7, still had another 3 months to run. By the end, 9 men from this brigade had died, almost all killed by roadside bombs, including 3 Royal Marine Commandos. Progress in Helmand was hard to measure, but it was becoming clear that British troops would be here for some time. This November, almost 5 years on, we returned to film with Delta Company, now on their 3rd tour of duty here. We travelled from Camp Bastion and on to another remote outpost, this time to Patrol Base Clifton. Their old base had been shut down, while the outlying areas they'd once fought in, from Musa Kala and Kajaki to Sangin, had been taken on by US Marines as part of the surge. In this part of Helmand, there is still a Taliban threat today, but for now, the area around this camp has been relatively peaceful.
as we come towards 2014 and the British forces' final withdrawal, we're very much now in the transition phase where we're handing over lead security responsibility back to the Afghans.
And for you and your men, what's that like? Because I presume that for some of the younger people, it's quite a surprise that it isn't more fighting.
A little bit, and there's a certain management of expectations, because throughout our pre-deployment training, which lasts approximately a year, we obviously train for the full spectrum of operations, and so to come out for some of the young men who want to practice their trade, it is quite frustrating. But all of the men and the Marines in the company do get the mission. They do understand that we're entering the transition phase, and if we're still war fighting towards the end of the campaign, then we won't have achieved success.
Living conditions at this patrol base, Clifton, are comfortable, but you can see they're still pretty basic. But this, in almost every other way, is a very different tour to the one that Delta Company experienced back in 2007 when they came into almost daily contacts with the Taliban. Now it's all about helping the Afghan army and the Afghan police to do their job. On a rocky outpost nearby, an Afghan policeman stands guard. These hills have seen many armies come and go, and legend has it that this fort was used by Genghis Khan. It was occupied by the British too, in their last war here.
Go faster, we'll move off. You jump on the back, okay, and just keep the security at the back.
And once again, the Afghans are preparing for British troops to leave. This new checkpoint, built with British and Danish money, is for the Afghan local police. They're men recruited from the villages here to keep their own communities safe.
We also asked the ALP if they want to reassemble the weapons.
The Royal Marines have been mentoring them, including Corporal Will Patton, now on his third tour of duty.
It's different, as in last time was a lot more kinetic, a lot more interaction with the enemy, whereas this time there's a lot of progression going on. We're seeing a total different side to Afghanistan this time around, with the interaction with the ALP.
And how does that feel?
Personally, it feels like a lot of progress has been made from what they used to be like to what they are now.
And what's it like working closely with the Afghans?
It's an experience, good and bad. You get to see the Afghan way of life, and you also get to see how it compares to our own way of life back in the UK. Like simple things like turning the tap on you take for granted, whereas here, along with the LP, we have to pump the well and get the water out. So making a cup of tea is not as easy as you think.
If the chief of police come in, it'd be better if... we are doing
Major Mike Scanlon and the local police commander, Abdul Ahad, are preparing for the checkpoint to be handed over. From now on, the fate of this area will be in Afghan hands, although the Royal Marines can still be called in for the next few months if things go badly wrong.
The situation for this area is pretty good. There are some roadside bombs, but we find most of them before they go off, so people can get on with farming. If the Afghan government helps us by building roads, schools and hospitals and doesn't abandon us, we'll be fine, and the enemy won't want to fight us. But if the Taliban help us, then people here will support them.
For British forces now, the Taliban threat from the enemy outside has almost been overtaken by that from the enemy within. The majority of deaths on this tour have come at the hands of men wearing Afghan police or army uniform. Some genuine members of the force who've developed a grudge, others Taliban infiltrators. Both sides are now stripping down their weapons again, only this time they're doing it blindfold. That not only takes an awful lot of skill, it takes a lot of trust. A short drive away, this Afghan army base has already been handed over, although British forces still visit to work and to play, side by side with their Afghan colleagues. But after the recent insider attacks, is there still trust?
You can never 100% trust anyone, but my guys, here with the A&A, we're extremely comfortable with them, and even out on the ground and stuff, you trust them to come and help you out.
But just in case an armed British soldier watches over us, they're known as guardian angels, protecting their comrades. And the ground a few hundred metres away here remains a front line where the insurgents can still attack. Just 2 days after we filmed this match, Captain Walter Barry from One Scots is killed by an Afghan soldier during a similar friendly. After Captain Barry's death, we're taken to meet the most senior Afghan army commander in Helmand.
I want to express my condolences to his family and to the people of the UK. We share your grief. You know, we have 18,000 Afghan soldiers in Helmand. There is good and bad everywhere. We talk to our soldiers while they're in training and tell them that murder is forbidden. But the one or two who do things like this have usually been influenced by the enemy.
We will remember them. We will remember them.
Remembrance Sunday was marked by British troops in Helmand at the 11th hour of the 11th month in the 11th year of this campaign. Despite their youth, many here had already lost friends and comrades on this and previous operations, giving this day an even deeper resonance. For many, the losses are still raw. For the Royal Marines, many thinking of Corporal David O'Connor and the medic Corporal Channing Day, killed by an Afghan policeman in October.
When you go home, tell them of us and say, for their tomorrow, we gave our today.
For this brigade, there's little time to mourn their losses while they're here. They'll have to do that when they return home. But carrying on after losing friends and comrades is always hard.
Yes, it is hard. I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't. But in the long term, we have to work with the Afghan National Security Forces to help make them better so that we can then hand it over in good shape and then hand all our responsibilities over to them by 2014. The Royal Marines have taken a number of fatalities in Afghanistan. We've got to ensure that it hasn't been in vain, and I think that the progress that is being made in large parts of central Helmand is testament to their efforts, and I think we shouldn't lose sight of that towards the end of the campaign.
As part of their legacy, British forces have been helping dismantle old NATO checkpoints to set up new bases for the Afghan police, built using local methods and local contractors. Off camera, the builder here tells us that corruption amongst police and Afghan officials remains a problem. But he says it is more peaceful now than it was before. Security in this area of Goresh hasn't yet been fully handed back to the Afghan security forces, but the signs that it's on its way there are everywhere, from the newly built police checkpoint to the fact that NATO soldiers no longer routinely patrol this market. They're only here today to take care of us. Many Afghans, though, fear what will happen after NATO leaves, especially in Helmand. But the woman in charge of British civilian efforts here says she's determined to ensure that the sacrifices made will not be in vain.
Well, I think what is striking about Helmand is how far it's come. It was one of the most conflict-ridden and most destitute provinces. It's come a huge way. So if we have to remember that in 2001 no girls were in school, we've now got 28,000 girls in school, for example. So when we leave, people will work themselves to ensure that the progress that we've achieved with them is enduring.
These young Afghan soldiers grew up in a country scarred by decades of war. So what do they think will happen when NATO forces leave?
There are two wars going on in Afghanistan. One is for religion and one is for power. When NATO forces leave, the people fighting here for religious reasons will stop, but those battling for power will keep on fighting.
But by then, it won't be NATO's fight. The hope is that the Afghan army and police will be able to quell the insurgency that remains.
As good as we're going to get them, the rest of the progression they'll have to do on their own. But I can safely say that me, the boss, and the rest of our lads have left our piece of Afghanistan. and done our bit for progression.
The international community has promised it won't abandon Afghanistan, but continue to support its government and people in other ways, as British troops on this deployment look to their final months here.
I think because of all the sacrifices a lot of ISAF and British troops have made over the years, it's really good for the Marines of Delta Company to be able to return back to Norton Manor, to go to the Remembrance Garden and realise that the trees that are planted in there haven't been for nothing, and we have actually left an Afghanistan which is better than the one we came into all those years ago.